The morning of my wedding day, I woke up in a plush hotel room at the Plaza in New York City, and something felt wrong. Not the usual flutter of bride nerves, but a deeper, heavier pull, like my body was whispering a warning my mind couldn't yet decode. I lay still for a moment, staring at the ornate ceiling, the soft glow of dawn slipping through the heavy curtains. My chest felt tight, a weight pressing down, not from excitement, but from something else entirely. I couldn't name it, but it was there, sharp and insistent. I reached for my phone on the nightstand, the screen lighting up with the time, 8:15 a.m. A notification blinked, a text from James Carter, my fiancé. Hoping you're sleeping in, my love. Can't wait to see you walk down the aisle. I love you more than you'll ever know. I read it twice, my thumb hovering over the words. The message was sweet, perfect even, but something about it gnawed at me. Maybe it was the extravagance of more than you'll ever know. The people who love you most don't need to quantify it, do they? I pushed the thought away, chalking it up to pre-wedding jitters. A knock at the door jolted me upright. "Florist's here," called Sarah Mitchell, my best friend, her voice bright but edged with the chaos of wedding prep. I slipped on a silk robe and opened the door to a cascade of white roses and peonies, their petals soft and pure against the morning light. "These are stunning," I said, forcing a smile as I took a bouquet from the delivery woman. Sarah was already arranging vases around the room, her auburn hair pulled into a messy bun. The champagne-colored bridesmaid dresses hung neatly by the window, catching the light like liquid gold. "James has good taste," I added, trying to anchor myself in the moment. Sarah paused, adjusting a flower with care. "He sure does. Picked you, didn't he?" She grinned, but then her tone shifted, softer, almost hesitant. "You okay, Emma? You seem off." Her green eyes searched mine, and for a second, I felt exposed, like she could see the unease curling in my stomach. "Just nerves," I lied, waving a hand. "Big day, you know?" She nodded, but her smile didn't reach her eyes, and that catch in her voice lingered, like she was holding something back. My phone buzzed again, pulling my attention. A text from Olivia Wilson, my sister and maid of honor. "Running late, don't kill me. Be there by 9. I groaned, showing the screen to Sarah. Classic Olivia. She's supposed to be here at 8 to help with setup. Sarah rolled her eyes, her hands busy with another bouquet. "Your sister's always fashionably late." Bet she's still picking out her earrings. Despite myself, I laughed, but the knot in my chest tightened. Olivia's tardiness wasn't new, but today, it felt like another crack in the perfect facade of this day. "She's here," Sarah said suddenly, glancing toward the door, though no one had knocked. Her tone was flat, and she didn't meet my eyes. I frowned, confused, but before I could ask, I felt the weight of the moment pressing harder. I needed a second to breathe, to shake off this creeping dread. "I'm just gonna freshen up," I said, slipping into the bathroom. The woman staring back at me in the mirror looked like a stranger. My dark hair was still loose, my brown eyes wide and uncertain, blurred at the edges like I was on the verge of tears I hadn't acknowledged. Emma Wilson, 28 years old, was about to become Emma Carter in less than 5 hours. I'd spent my whole life building who I was through late nights at my graphic design job, through heartbreak and triumphs, and now I was stepping into something new. Someone new. The thought should have thrilled me, but instead, it left me hollow, like I was losing a piece of myself. I splashed cold water on my face, willing the unease to fade. The mirror reflected the bouquet on the counter, the white petals mocking my uncertainty with their purity. James's text flashed in my mind again, those words that should have warmed me but instead felt like a puzzle piece that didn't fit. I gripped the edge of the sink, my reflection steadying me. Whatever this feeling was, I'd face it. I had to. The day was just beginning, and I wasn't ready to let it unravel, not yet. Back in the hotel room, I clutched my phone, James's earlier text still glowing on the screen. "Can't wait to see you walk down the aisle." The words felt distant now, like a note left by someone I didn't quite know. I set the phone down, trying to focus on the flurry of wedding prep around me, but that heavy feeling in my chest wouldn't budge. Sarah was still fussing with the flowers, humming softly, but her earlier hesitation hung in the air, unspoken. Then my phone buzzed again, sharp and insistent, pulling me out of my thoughts. I glanced at the lock screen, expecting another late apology from Olivia. Instead, James's name flashed, but the message preview made my blood run cold. I can't do this with her. We need to talk before the ceremony. My heart stuttered, a sick lurch in my stomach. I fumbled to unlock the phone, my fingers trembling, but when I opened the app, the message was gone. Vanished like it had never existed. I scrolled frantically, checking every thread, but there was nothing. Wrong chat? Wrong person? My mind raced, grasping for explanations, but the nausea pooling in my gut told me this wasn't a mistake. I tried calling James, my thumb hitting his contact with a shaky press. Straight to voicemail. His smooth voice, the one that used to make me melt, now felt like a stranger's. "This is James Carter. Leave a message." I hung up, tried again. Voicemail again. The room spun slightly, the white roses on the table blurring into a mocking haze. Sarah noticed, her hands pausing mid-arrangement. "Emma, you okay? You look pale." I forced my voice to stay steady, though it sounded foreign to my ears. "Can you try calling James for me?" She frowned, wiping her hands on a towel, her eyes searching mine. "Sure, but what's going on?" I shook my head, not trusting myself to explain. "Just please." She pulled out her phone, dialed, and waited. Her frown deepened. "Voicemail," she said, setting the phone down. The word landed like a stone, heavy and final. I nodded, swallowing hard, my mind scrambling for a plan. "I need to check on something," I said, grabbing my purse. Sarah's eyes widened. "Emma, you can't leave now. The makeup artist is coming in, like 15 minutes. But I was already moving, slipping off my heels to move faster, my bare feet silent on the plush carpet. "I'll be quick," I called over my shoulder, my voice sharper than I meant. I had to find James, had to see his face, hear his voice, anything to make sense of that message. The elevator ride to his room felt endless, the mirrored walls reflecting a version of me I barely recognized wild-eyed, tense, a bride unraveling before the vows. We'd followed the tradition of staying in separate rooms the night before, a romantic gesture that now felt like a cruel setup. Fear pulsed through my veins, cold and relentless, as the elevator dinged and opened to the 10th floor. The hallway was quiet, the thick carpet swallowing my steps, but every door I passed seemed to loom, hiding secrets. I reached James's room, number 1014, and knocked lightly at first, my knuckles barely grazing the wood. No answer. I knocked harder, my heart pounding in my ears. Still nothing. Then the door next door cracked open and Michael Thompson, James's best man, poked his head out. His dark eyes widened when he saw me. "Emma? What are you doing here?" His voice was low, almost cautious, and his expression guilty, miserable, told me more than words could. "Where's James?" I asked, my voice calmer than I felt. Michael hesitated, glancing down the hall like he expected someone to appear. I don't know. He was here earlier, but he trailed off, rubbing the back of his neck. I stepped closer, my eyes locked on his. "Michael, what's going on? You look like you've seen a ghost." He swallowed hard, his jaw tight. "I've been trying to stay out of it, Emma. I swear. But I've suspected something for a while. About James. And Olivia." The world tilted. "My sister. My fiancé." His words hung between us, heavy and suffocating, confirming the dread I'd been fighting all morning. "How long?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Michael looked at the floor, unable to meet my eyes. "I don't know. A few months, maybe longer." I tried talking to him, but he brushed it off. I didn't want to believe it. His voice cracked, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for him, caught in the middle of a betrayal he didn't ask for. But pity didn't last. Anger flared, hot and sharp, pushing past the nausea. Where is he now? I pressed, stepping closer. Michael shook his head, helpless. I don't know, Emma. I'm sorry. Sorry wasn't enough. I pushed past him, my hand on the doorknob of James's room, but it was locked. Michael watched me, his expression torn, but he didn't stop me. I turned back to him, my voice steady despite the storm inside. If you see him, don't say I was here. He nodded, and I walked away, my mind set on one thing, finding the truth, no matter how much it hurt. I stood outside James's hotel room, my hand still on the locked doorknob, Michael's words echoing in my head. Suspected something. James and Olivia. My fiancé and my sister. The hallway felt too quiet, the air too thick, like the world was holding its breath, waiting for me to shatter. But I didn't. Not yet. I turned to Michael, his guilty expression flickering in the dim light. Open the door, I said, my voice low, steady, surprising even me. He hesitated, then pulled a keycard from his pocket, his hands shaking as he swiped it. The lock clicked, and I pushed the door open, stepping into James's room like I was crossing into enemy territory. The space was pristine, almost staged. His suit hung neatly in the open closet, a crisp white shirt folded beside it. His overnight bag sat on the luggage rack, unzipped, revealing folded clothes. On the bathroom counter, his toiletries were lined up with military precision toothbrush, cologne, razor. It was also James. Controlled, perfect. But then I saw it on the nightstand, glinting under the lamp, a second phone, sleek and black, not the one he used every day. My heart lurched. 2 weeks ago, I'd found it in his jacket pocket when I borrowed it to run errands. I'd dismissed it then, believing his excuse about a work phone. Now it felt like a grenade. I grabbed it, my fingers cold against the smooth surface. The lock screen glowed, demanding a passcode. James used the same 4 digits for everything his birthday. I typed them in, and the phone unlocked with a soft click. My breath caught as the screen filled with notifications, hundreds of messages in a thread labeled O. Olivia. I opened it, scrolling through a history that stretched back months. My eyes burned, but I couldn't stop. I can't keep lying to her, Olivia wrote. I'm going to tell her, James replied. When? She pressed. Today, before the ceremony. And then, the latest. Meet me in the garden at 11 a.m. I glanced at my watch. 11:17. I moved to the window, my legs unsteady, and pulled back the curtain. Below, the plaza's garden stretched out, its stone paths winding through manicured flower beds. And there they were. James, in a white shirt and slacks, his jacket missing, gesturing sharply. Olivia, wrapped in a gray shawl, her blonde hair half-pinned, tears streaming down her face. My sister. My fiancé. They stood close, too close, their voices lost to the distance, but their body language screaming betrayal. I should have screamed, thrown the phone, run down there, and made a scene. But instead, a strange calm washed over me, like I was watching someone else's life implode. Emma, Michael's voice came softly from behind me, tentative, like he was approaching a wounded animal. I'm so sorry. I didn't turn around. The garden blurred through the glass, James's hand brushing Olivia's arm. Don't, I said, my voice flat. Just don't. I took a deep breath, the air sharp in my lungs, and turned to face him. His dark eyes were wide, confused, but I felt a clarity I hadn't all morning. The ceremony starts at 2 p.m., I said, each word deliberate. Make sure James is there. And make sure Olivia is there. Michael blinked, his mouth opening, then closing. Emma, you can't still want to go through with this. I smiled, but it wasn't warm, wasn't kind. Something in my expression made him step back, like he'd seen a stranger. Oh, I'm not marrying James today, I said, my voice low, almost a whisper. But I want them both exactly where they're supposed to be when I walk down that aisle. I clutched the second phone tighter, its weight grounding me. everyone in their places. He stared at me, his confusion deepening, but I didn't explain. I didn't need to. 2 weeks ago, when I first found this phone, I'd spent hours reading their messages, crying in the dark, piecing together their lies. I'd smiled through dress fittings, laughed at the rehearsal dinner, all while carrying their secret like a blade in my chest. Now, that blade was mine to wield. Can you do that? I asked, my eyes locked on his. Can you make sure they're there? Michael nodded slowly, his jaw tight. Whatever you need, Emma. I stepped past him, the phone still in my hand, and headed for the door. The hallway felt different now, less oppressive, like I'd reclaimed some piece of myself. I didn't look back at Michael. Didn't need to see his pity or his doubt. My mind was racing, but not with panic, with purpose. James and Olivia thought they could hide this, thought they could slip away clean. They were wrong. I'd known about their affair longer than they realized, and today, I'd make sure everyone else knew too. The elevator dinged, and I stepped inside, my reflection in the mirrors sharp and resolute. This wasn't about love anymore. It was about truth, and I was done hiding it. The elevator doors closed, sealing me in with my reflect-I-own a woman I barely recognized, clutching a stranger's phone, her eyes sharp with purpose. I slipped James's second phone into my purse, its weight a reminder of the truth I'd uncovered. Back in my room at the plaza, I moved like a ghost, my bare feet silent on the carpet. Sarah was still there, arranging the last of the flowers, but her chatter stopped when she saw me. "Emma, where'd you go?" she asked, her voice tight with worry. "You're freaking me out." "I just needed air," I said, forcing a smile that felt like a mask. My voice was calm, too calm, and Sarah's eyes narrowed, searching for cracks. She didn't push, though, just nodded and turned back to the bouquets. The room buzzed with the quiet chaos of wedding prep bridesmaid dresses shimmering by the window, the scent of peonies thick in the air. But it all felt distant, like a stage set for someone else's life. I sat on the edge of the bed, my purse in my lap, and pulled out my own phone. 2 weeks of secrets pulsed in my memory, screenshots, forwarded messages, a timeline of James and Olivia's betrayal I'd built in stolen moments. Now it was time to use them. The makeup artist arrived, her kit clattering as she set up. "You're gonna look like a dream," she chirped, oblivious to the storm inside me. I nodded, letting her guide me to a chair, her brushes soft against my skin. Sarah hovered nearby, adjusting my veil, her fingers trembling slightly. "Emma," she whispered, leaning close so the artist couldn't hear, "are you sure about this? We can cancel, say you're sick. No one would blame you." Her green eyes were wide, pleading, but I shook my head, my lips curving into a faint, resolute smile. "No chance," I said. "I'm doing this." She frowned, confused, but didn't argue. I closed my eyes as the artist worked, the soft sweep of foundation smoothing over my skin like armor. My mind was elsewhere, finalizing the plan. I'd spent 2 weeks preparing, saving every damning message, every proof of their affair. I'd forwarded texts to my email, taken screenshots, even drafted a presentation on my laptop, a digital guillotine waiting to drop. It was hidden in a folder labeled Vows, irony I couldn't resist. The hotel's banquet hall had a projector, and I'd already coordinated with the AV tech, claiming it was for a surprise slideshow. They had no idea what was coming. A knock at the door broke my thoughts. Olivia swept in, her bridesmaid dress hugging her frame, the champagne fabric glowing against her skin. She'd insisted on this design, claiming it flattered everyone, but now I saw her obsession with it for what it was: vanity, control. "Emma," she exclaimed, rushing over, her face flushed with fake concern. "I looked everywhere for you earlier. Are you okay?" Her voice was syrupy, but her eyes darted, searching mine for suspicion. "Bold," I said, my tone cool, deliberate. "I'm fine. Just needed a moment." She tilted her head, studying me, her smile faltering. "You look different," she said, and I felt a strange thrill at her unease. Let her wonder. The makeup artist stepped back, admiring her work. "Perfect," she declared, and I caught my reflection flawless, composed, a bride ready for battle. Olivia lingered, adjusting her hair, her guilt flickering like a shadow she couldn't shake. The wedding coordinator poked her head in, her clipboard clutched tight. "Time to line up, ladies." Olivia moved to the front as maid of honor, giving me one last look, that same guilty flicker in her eyes. She smiled, forced and brittle, then stepped out. Sarah stayed close, her hand brushing mine. "You don't have to do this," she murmured, but I squeezed her hand, silent reassurance. I was more ready than I'd ever been. My dad, Robert, appeared in the doorway, his suit crisp, his smile warm but tinged with concern. "Ready, sweetheart?" he asked, offering his arm. I hesitated, the weight of tradition pressing against my resolve. "Dad," I said softly, "I need to go in alone." His brow furrowed, confusion clouding his eyes. "That's not the plan, Emma." I touched his arm, my voice steady. "Plans change. Trust me." His eyes misted, but he nodded, stepping back. "If that's what you want," he said, his voice thick. I stood alone at the threshold of the banquet hall, the soft prelude music drifting through the doors. My wedding dress clung to me, heavy but grounding, like it was holding me together. 200 guests waited inside, their whispers and laughter muffled, unaware of the bomb I was about to drop. I smoothed the lace at my waist, my fingers steady despite the pulse hammering in my throat. Sarah stood behind me, her breath uneven. "Last chance," she whispered. I didn't answer, just nodded to the coordinator, who gave a thumbs up. The music shifted, signaling the procession. I took a deep breath, my heart a drumbeat of resolve. This wasn't about becoming Emma Carter anymore. This was about reclaiming Emma Wilson and making sure the truth saw light. The double doors of the plaza's banquet hall loomed before me, their polished wood catching the soft glow of chandeliers inside. The bridal march began, its notes soaring, expectant, but I stood frozen at the threshold, my white gown pooling around me like armor. 200 guests turned, their faces alight with that special wedding day joy, their murmurs fading into a hush. James stood at the altar, handsome in his tuxedo, but his eyes betrayed him, hesitant, anguished, darting toward Olivia, who stood across from him in her champagne dress, her gaze fixed on the floor. My heart pounded, but my hands were steady, gripping the bouquet like a lifeline. I didn't move down the aisle. Whispers rippled through the crowd, a soft wave of confusion. James shifted, his jaw tightening, while the officiant glanced nervously at the coordinator. Sarah hovered behind me, her breath catching, but I ignored it all. Instead, I turned left, my heels clicking against the polished floor as I walked to a small table tucked to the side. A laptop sat there, connected to a projector, its screen dark but ready. I'd planned this moment for 2 weeks, every step calculated, every screenshot saved. Now it was time. I pressed a key, and the screen behind the altar flared to life. A single message appeared, bold and damning, in stark black text. "I can't stop thinking about last night. When can I see you again?" A collective gasp sucked the air from the room. I pressed another key, and the next message scrolled up. "This is wrong. She's my sister." Then another. "I've never felt this way about anyone, not even Emma." The words hung there, a digital indictment, each one a blade I'd sharpened in secret. The guests froze, their faces twisting shock, horror, disbelief. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father sat rigid, his eyes wide. James stepped down from the altar, his voice breaking the stunned silence. "Emma, stop this. This isn't the time." I cut him off, my voice ringing clear, steady, slicing through the room. "Not the time? Not appropriate." I turned to face him, my eyes burning into his. "Like sleeping with my sister while planning our wedding was appropriate?" The words landed like a slap, and James flinched, his face paling. Olivia crumpled to the floor, her sobs loud and jagged, her hands clutching her dress. The crowd's murmurs grew, a low hum of outrage and pity. I pressed another key, and the messages kept coming, a relentless cascade of betrayal. Dates, times, intimate details, every lie they'd spun laid bare before friends, family, strangers. I'd spent 2 weeks curating this, forwarding their texts to my email, building a timeline that left no room for excuses. "I loved you both," I said, my voice unwavering despite the storm inside me. "And this is how you repay that love." I looked at James, then Olivia, their faces crumbling under the weight of their own choices. James reached for me, his hand trembling. "Please, Emma, let me explain." I stepped back, my gaze cold. "There's nothing to explain. The messages speak for themselves." Olivia's voice broke through, choked and desperate. "Emma, I'm sorry." I turned to her, my eyes narrowing. "Sorry before I walked down the aisle, or after you got caught?" The question hung there, sharp and unforgiving. I was ready to swear my life to a man who couldn't even stay faithful before the wedding. The room fell silent, the air heavy with shock. I scanned the crowd, cousins who'd flown in from Chicago, colleagues from my design firm, James's law partners all staring, some with tears, others with clenched jaws. What a farce this day had become. I straightened, my voice steady but softer now. "Final. The reception is cancelled," I said. "But please, pour yourselves some champagne. I think we all need it." A few nervous laughs broke the tension, but most faces stayed frozen. I turned to leave, my gown swishing softly, but paused at the doors, glancing back at James. "Oh, and James," I said, my tone almost casual, "the honeymoon tickets to Napa Valley are non-refundable. Maybe you and Olivia can go instead. I hear the vineyards are gorgeous this time of year." His mouth opened, but no words came. Olivia's sobs grew louder, and I let them fade behind me as I walked out. The hallway stretched long and quiet, the muffled chaos of the banquet hall receding with each step. My chest felt heavy, like I'd climbed 1,000 stairs, but my head was high, my shoulders squared. I'd done it. I'd torn their lies apart in front of everyone, and the weight of their betrayal wasn't mine to carry anymore. Sarah caught up to me, breathless, her eyes wide with awe and worry. "Emma," that was, she trailed off, shaking her head, unable to find words. I reached up, unpinned my veil, and let it fall to the floor, the lace pooling like shed skin. "I did it," I said, my voice soft but certain. Freedom tasted bitter, sharp, but it was mine. Sarah grabbed my hand, squeezing tight, her silence louder than any words. My smile was faint, cold, devoid of warmth. If James and Olivia thought I'd fade quietly into the background, they were dead wrong. I wasn't the bride who'd woken up this morning, uncertain and afraid. I was something new, forged in the fire of their deceit, and this was only the beginning. 3 days after what everyone now called the wedding massacre, I sat alone on a weathered bench in Riverside Park, New York, the Hudson River glinting under a gray autumn sky. Fallen leaves swirled along the path, their rustle matching the chill settling deep in my chest. The air was crisp, biting, and I pulled my coat tighter, my breath visible in short, sharp puffs. The world felt quieter now, but not peaceful, just empty, like the calm after a storm you didn't survive unscathed. My phone sat heavy in my pocket, notifications muted, but I knew Olivia's latest Instagram post was racking up likes. A black and white selfie, sad eyes, a caption dripping with regret, and calls for forgiveness. The thought made my stomach twist. "You're early," a voice said behind me, soft but familiar. I turned to see Rachel Ingwin approaching, her dark hair whipping around her face in the wind. She was Olivia's college friend, or had been, until a falling out 2 years ago that no one ever explained. I'd always liked Rachel, her blunt honesty a contrast to Olivia's polished charm, but we'd never been close. Now, she was the only person I'd reached out to since the wedding. "Thanks for meeting me," I said as she settled beside me, her scarf fluttering. She smirked, but her eyes were serious, scanning my face. When you texted, I nearly dropped my phone. Figured you'd be halfway to Fiji by now, hiding from the fallout. She paused, her gaze softening. How you holding up, Emma? I tried to smile, but it felt more like a grimace. Better than you'd expect for someone whose fiancé cheated with her sister. The words came out sharp, and Rachel's eyebrows lifted, but she didn't flinch. Fair, she said, leaning back. That was a hell of a show you put on. We sat in silence for a moment, watching a jogger pass with a golden retriever bounding after a tennis ball. The normalcy of it stung, a reminder of the life I'd thought I'd have. Rachel broke the quiet, her voice low. You want to know why Olivia and I stopped talking? It wasn't just some petty fight over a borrowed dress. My heart skipped, sensing the weight of what was coming. It wasn't about James, if that's what you're thinking, she clarified quickly, reading my expression. But I caught them together 2 years ago, at a conference in Chicago. Not just to fling something deeper. 2 years. The timeline hit like a punch, stealing my breath. Not a pre-wedding slip, not cold feet, but a betrayal stretching back years. I pressed my palms to my eyes, trying to steady myself. Why didn't you tell me? My voice was raw, accusing. Rachel shrugged, her expression grim. I tried. Called once. Left a voicemail. You never called back. Then I heard you were engaged, and I thought maybe it was over between them. Figured stirring it up would just hurt you for no reason. I remembered that Calla missed number during a hectic work week, a voicemail I'd deleted without listening. My own fault, in a way. I should have pushed harder, Rachel admitted, her voice softer now. I'm sorry, Emma. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. She studied me, then asked, What's your plan? That stunt at the wedding was epic, but knowing Olivia, she's already spinning herself as the victim. I pulled out my phone, opened Instagram, and showed her Olivia's post, those mournful eyes, a caption about mistakes and love's complexity, with thousands of sympathetic comments. Rachel snorted. Unbelievable. She always lands on her feet. Not this time, I said, pocketing my phone. My voice was steady, cold. I want them to lose something that matters. James is up for partner at his law firm next month. I know he's been fudging his billable hour spreadsheets I found on his laptop, real hours versus what he reported. It could tank his career. Rachel's eyebrows shot up. And Olivia? She prompted. She's shortlisted for a curator job at the Whitney Museum, her dream. I'm not sure how yet, but I'll find a way to derail it. Rachel was quiet, picking at a loose thread on her sleeve. Then she met my eyes, her gaze piercing. Can I ask something, Emma? What's the endgame? Ruining their careers, does that actually fix anything? The question caught me off guard, and for a moment, I didn't have an answer. I want them to feel what I felt, I said finally, my voice low, almost a growl. They took everything I cared about. I want them to lose what they care about. Rachel studied me, her expression unreadable. You know what helped me move past Olivia's crap? Realizing holding onto anger was like swallowing poison and hoping she'd choke. I bristled, my hands clenching. That's your zen, Rachel. I'm not there. She nodded, standing, brushing leaves off her jeans. I get it. I'll help you, Emma, but be careful. Revenge changes you. Her words lingered, heavy, as she walked away, her scarf trailing in the wind. I sat there, the park blurring around me, her warning clashing with the fire in my chest. Changed or not, I wasn't done. James and Olivia had built their lives on my trust, and I'd make sure they paid for every single one. The hum of a busy Manhattan cafe wrapped around me as I sat in a corner booth, my latte untouched, the steam curling into the air. It was a gray afternoon, 5 days after the wedding that never was, and the weight of my new reality pressed hard against my ribs. My phone lay face down on the table, its silence deliberate. I'd ignored calls, texts, everything. But I couldn't ignore the fire still burning inside, the need to make James and Olivia pay. Across from me, Michael Thompson slid into the booth, his dark eyes heavy with concern. You look exhausted, Emma, he said, his voice low, careful, like he was afraid I'd bolt. I'm managing, I said, my tone sharper than I meant. Sleep was a distant memory, my nights consumed by cycling through rage, plotting, and a grief so heavy it felt like drowning. Michael sighed, running a hand through his short hair. Have you talked to anyone? A therapist, maybe? I shook my head, my fingers tightening around the coffee mug. I'm fine. He leaned forward, unconvinced. You're not fine. You're chasing something that's eating you alive. The barista called his name, and he stood to grab our drinks, his easy charm flickering as he chatted with her. Michael had always been the glue in our group, the one smoothing over tensions, making everyone feel seen. He returned, setting an oat milk latte in front of me. Still your favorite, right? I nodded, a flicker of warmth breaking through my guard. Miss you, Emma, he said, his voice soft, cautious. But I gotta ask, what are you hoping to get out of this? All this revenge, this justice. I sipped the latte, avoiding his gaze, the question cutting deeper than I wanted to admit. They humiliated me, I said finally, my voice low, steady. In front of everyone. They betrayed me for years, Michael. Built a future together while I was picking out table settings for our wedding. That's not something you just let go. He leaned back, his expression torn. I know it's unforgivable. But this path, it's changing you. Maybe I need to change, I snapped, louder than I meant, drawing a few glances from nearby tables. I lowered my voice, my hands clenching. The Emma you knew trusted people who didn't deserve it. She was a fool. Michael's silence was heavy, his eyes searching mine. Then he leaned forward, his voice barely above a whisper. James came to me last night. Drunk, crying, a mess. He said something that's been eating at me. He thinks you knew about them before the wedding, found his other phone 2 weeks earlier. I froze, my breath catching. The truth hung between us, sharp and unavoidable. So why go through with it? Michael pressed, his voice gentle but relentless. Why not confront them when you found out? I'd asked myself the same question during those sleepless nights. A private confrontation would have been too easy for them. Tears, apologies, Olivia playing the confused little sister, James blaming cold feet. I wanted them to face consequences, I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. In public, where they couldn't charm their way out. Michael's gaze softened, but before he could respond, my phone buzzed, a message from Rachel. Found something. Call me now. I stood, grabbing my bag, my heart racing. I have to go, I said, but Michael caught my wrist, his touch gentle but firm. Wait, there's something else. James isn't just upset about the wedding. He's scared about the startup he invested in, the one with your wedding fund. Said something about an audit. He's even talking about leaving the country. My pulse quickened, a thread of possibility unraveling in my mind. What kind of audit? I asked, my voice steady despite the storm inside. Michael shook his head. He wouldn't say. Just that it's serious, and he's worried about what you might know. I nodded, my thoughts spinning. This was the leverage I needed, something bigger than their affair. Thanks for telling me, I said, stepping back. I won't say you told me. Michael's brow furrowed, worry etched deep. I'm not telling you to use it against him, Emma. I'm telling you because I'm worried you'll get caught in whatever they're mixed up in. It could be bigger than you think. His words stung, but I brushed them off. I can handle it, I said, though doubt flickered in my chest. I turned to leave, but his voice stopped me. From where I'm sitting, you've spent the last week trying to get revenge and failing. Maybe it's time to deal with what happened instead. The truth in his words cut deep, but I couldn't let it slow me down. I walked out into the chilly Manhattan air, my phone already dialing Rachel. She answered on the first ring. Emma, you sitting down? Her voice was urgent, edged with excitement. Those documents I mentioned? It's not just James and Olivia investing in that startup. They're using it to launder money, and James's boss, David Peterson, is in on it. Shell companies, fake invoices, the works. My breath caught, the pieces clicking into place. No wonder my earlier attempts at revenge had fizzled. I'd been aiming at twigs while a whole forest of corruption stood behind them. This was my chance not just to ruin James and Olivia, but to burn their entire web to the ground. The lobby of the Waldorf Astoria in Manhattan was a cocoon of quiet luxury, crystal chandeliers casting warm light over leather armchairs and polished marble floors. I sat in a shadowy corner, a gin and tonic sweating in my hand, my eyes fixed on the elevator bank through a decorative mirror's reflection. It was 6:55 p.m., the minute hand creeping towards 7, each tick tightening the knot in my chest. I'd changed into a sleek black dress and heels, my hair pulled back in a low bun anonymous enough to blend with the hotel's upscale crowd, but polished enough to avoid suspicion. The perfect disguise for a woman waiting for someone who didn't know she was coming. Olivia's warning from the cafe echoed in my mind. James was meeting someone in room 412 at 7 p.m., collecting a final payment before skipping town. My fingers grazed the edge of my purse, where my phone held screenshots of Rachel's documents proof of James and Olivia's money laundering scheme, tied to his boss, David Peterson. I wasn't sure what I'd find tonight, but I needed answers and maybe a chance to reclaim the wedding fund James had sunk into their corrupt startup. The elevator doors slid open, and there he was, James, tall and unmistakable in a charcoal suit I didn't recognize, a slim briefcase in his hand. His face was gaunt, his usual confidence replaced by quick, nervous glances. He headed for the service elevator, oblivious to me in my corner. I waited 30 seconds, then followed, my heels silent on the thick carpet. The fourth-floor hallway was hushed, the air heavy with the scent of fresh linen. I moved carefully, passing numbered doors until I reached 412. Pressing my ear to the cool wood, I caught muffled voices, James's smooth, practiced tone, and a deeper, gruffer one I didn't know. "That's not what we agreed on," the stranger said, his voice sharp. "The full payment's due today." James responded, his charm strained. "Look, my personal issue as me wedding, none of that affects this. I just need 2 more days. The transfers are processing." A heavy silence followed, the stranger's voice dropping low, forcing me to lean closer. "Our organization has been patient, Jensen. That patience has limits." My pulse hammered, Olivia's words ringing louder. "Those involved don't welcome public attention." The doorknob twitched, and I jerked back, my heart in my throat, scanning for a hiding spot. Too late. The door swung open, revealing a broad-shouldered man with silver hair and eyes like ice. He sized me up in a single glance. "Well," he said, his voice smooth but dangerous, "looks like we have a guest." James appeared behind him, his face draining of color when he saw me. "Emma, what the hell are you doing here?" I scrambled for a lie, my voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding my veins. "I was looking for you. The receptionist said you were here." The silver-haired man smiled, a predator's grin. "A friend of yours, Mr. Carter?" James swallowed hard, his eyes starting. "My former fiancé." The man stepped aside, gesturing into the room. "Join us." It wasn't an invitation. I walked in, my legs wooden, the spacious suite closing around me like a trap. A coffee table held scattered documents, some matching Rachel's files. A laptop glowed on the desk, spreadsheets open. The man extended a hand. "David Peterson," he said, and my stomach dropped. James's boss, the managing partner whose signature was on those damning papers. I shook his hand, my mind racing. "Emma Wilson," I said, forcing calm. David's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I believe you've contacted my office recently. An anonymous tip about Mr. Carter's billing practices." I froze, my lie unraveling. "I don't know what you're talking about," I managed, but David's gaze was unrelenting. "No? Curious timing, then." James stared at me, panic in his eyes. "Emma, what did you do?" David gestured to the sofa. "Let's sit. We have much to discuss." I stayed standing, my voice firm. "This is a mistake. I should go." David's tone hardened as he closed the door. "Not with your recent interest in our investments, Ms. Wilson." My blood ran cold. How did he know? Emma, what have you done? James whispered, real fear in his voice. I turned to him, my anger flaring. Was the money laundering before or after you started sleeping with my sister? David chuckled, unmoved, and moved to the window, gazing at the city lights. Family drama, he said, almost bored. Ms. Wilson, you've become a problem. Your wedding spectacle drew unwanted eyes. Your digging creates risk. I haven't told anyone, I lied, my voice steady. David's eyes flicked to me. Not even Rachel and Gwen? Or Michael Thompson? The casual mention of my friends sent a chill down my spine. He'd been watching me. What do you want? I asked, fighting to keep my voice even. He turned, his expression cold. You disappear. A long vacation with the right financial incentive. He nodded to the briefcase. 300,000, tax-free. Enough to start over somewhere quiet. The bribe hung in the air, surreal and heavy. James stepped forward, his voice desperate. Emma, take the money. Just go. I looked at him, really looked, and saw a man terrified, pathetic, willing to sacrifice me to save himself. You're pathetic, I whispered, my voice dripping with disgust. David checked his watch. Midnight, Ms. Wilson. Not a minute more. He handed me the briefcase, its weight heavy in my trembling hands. A good faith deposit. The rest comes when you prove you've left the city. I stumbled out, James's voice trailing after me. Emma, I'm sorry, I didn't look back. In the elevator, my reflection fractured in the Marorsa woman holding blood money, caught in a game far bigger than revenge. The truth was clear now. This wasn't just about James and Olivia anymore. It was about survival, and I was running out of time. The briefcase sat on my coffee table, a dark, silent weight, like a bomb ticking down to midnight. I hadn't opened it, couldn't bring myself to touch the stacks of cash meant to buy my silence, my safety. My Brooklyn apartment felt foreign, the familiar creak of the floorboards and hum of the radiator now part of someone else's life. My phone buzzed again, Rachel, for the 5th time since I'd left the Waldorf Astoria. I ignored it, my eyes fixed on the clock. 10:37 p.m., less than an hour and a half until David Peterson's deadline. The air felt thick, pressing against my chest, each breath a struggle to keep my thoughts from spiraling. The doorbell jolted me, sharp and insistent. I crept to the door, peering through the peephole. Michael stood in the hallway, his face etched with worry, his coat dusted with the first flakes of a late fall snow. I opened the door, and he stepped inside, his voice low, urgent. Rachel sent me. She's losing it, Emma. You promised you'd call after the hotel. I stepped back, my arms crossed, the weight of the night pressing harder. I needed to think, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Michael's eyes flicked to the briefcase, then back to me. What happened? I told him everything, David's threats, the bribe, the midnight ultimatum. Each word felt like peeling back a layer of skin, but it eased the pressure in my chest, like speaking the truth was its own kind of defiance. Michael listened, his expression darkening with every detail. This is way beyond us, Emma, he said when I finished, his voice steady but grave. These people are dangerous. You need to go to the police, report this now. I shook my head, my hands clenching. I've got no proof, Michael. It's my word against a top law firm partner and my ex-fiancé. And now I'm holding their money. I gestured to the briefcase, its presence accusing. How does that look? Better than being found dead in my apartment. His bluntness hit like a slap, and for a moment, we just stared at each other, the reality of my situation sinking in. David Peterson didn't make empty threats. My phone buzzed again, a text from an unknown number. Have you made a decision? I whispered. It's him. Michael read it over my shoulder, his jaw tight. Tell him you'll take the deal. Buy yourself time, then run. I shook my head, my resolve hardening. I can't. Not after everything. This isn't just about James and Olivia anymore. My voice cracked, but I pressed on. It's about what they're part of, what they've done. Another buzz, this time a call. Olivia's name flashed on the screen, and I hesitated, torn between ignoring her and needing answers. "Pick it up," Michael said softly, his hand on my arm. I hit speaker, my voice cold. "What do you want?" Olivia's voice came through, tense, breathless. "Emma, where are you? Are you home? Listen carefully, David's people are coming for you. They don't think you'll take the deal." My blood ran cold, my eyes meeting Michael's. "How do you know this?" I asked. "I'm with James," she said, and my stomach twisted. "He just got orders to clean out the office, destroy evidence. They're tying up loose ends, Emma, including you." Michael moved fast, checking the window locks, his voice sharp. "How much time do we have?" Olivia's voice faltered. "I don't know, not long. Get out of there." I gripped the phone, doubt and anger warring inside me. "Why are you helping me? You chose him, Olivia. You chose the money." Her voice broke, raw and jagged. "That was the biggest mistake of my life. I can't undo what I did, but I want you safe." Michael returned, his face grim. "We need to move, Emma. Your car's in the alley. If we're quick, we can make it." Olivia's voice cut through again, urgent. "Emma, listen, James has a drive. Copies of everything. Deals, shell companies, client lists. If you can get it." The line went dead. I tried calling back, nothing. "We don't have time," Michael insisted, grabbing my jacket from the hook. My mind raced, a plan forming. "The office," I said, my voice steady. "If James is destroying evidence, that drive's there." Michael's eyes widened. "That's insane, Emma. That's where they'll be." I grabbed the briefcase, its weight grounding me. "Exactly. That's where the proof is." "I'm not running, Michael. I'm fighting." 20 minutes later, we parked a block from James's law firm in Midtown, the building's glass facade looming dark except for a few lit offices, including the corner suite on the 14th floor. "James, this is a death trap," Michael muttered as we approached the back entrance, our breath visible in the cold. I nodded, my heart pounding. Then we moved fast. The security guard, a familiar face from my visits during the engagement, looked surprised. "Ms. Wilson, didn't expect you here so late." "Forgot something in James's office," I said, forcing a smile. "Wedding planner's notebook. Need it to cancel a vendor." He nodded, waving us through. "Mr. Carter's still up there." The elevator ride was torture, each floor a step closer to the unknown. Michael squeezed my hand, his voice low. "Follow my lead if it goes south." The 14th floor was dark, save for a glow spilling from James's office. I heard papers rustling, drawers slamming. I took a deep breath and pushed the door open. James stood by a shredder, feeding documents into its grinding maw. He froze when he saw me, his eyes flicking to Michael, then the briefcase in my hand. "Emma, what are you doing here?" His voice was hoarse, panicked. I stepped forward, my gaze locked on a small USB drive on his desk. "Looking for the truth," I said, my voice cold. "Where's the drive, James?" "The one with everything." His face paled, his hands trembling. "I don't know what you're talking about." The office door slammed shut behind us. David Peterson stood there, a gun in his hand, his smile cold. "Disappointed, Carter," he said softly. "Thought you were smarter than this." My heart raced, but I held my ground, my voice calm. "You won't shoot us." I pulled out my phone, showing a live stream icon. "This is streaming to a private server. If anything happens, it goes public." David's eyes narrowed, calculating. I kept going, my voice steady. "Copies of that drive are with 3 lawyers, set to release if we disappear." A lie, but he couldn't know. David lowered the gun slightly, his voice tight. "What do you want?" I met his gaze. "Call off your people. Leave me and my sister alone." He smirked, intrigued. "Your sister?" I nodded, my voice firm. "Family's complicated." Michael moved to block the door, his stance tense. "Cops are coming," he said. "Anonymous tip about suspicious activity." David's calm cracked, a flicker of doubt in his eyes. The tension stretched, electric, until sirens wailed outside, growing louder. David backed toward the door, his voice low. "This isn't over." I set the briefcase on the desk, opened it to reveal the cash. "I'm keeping this," I said, my voice steady. "Compensation for the damage." James choked out a protest, but I ignored him, slipping the USB drive into my pocket. Security burst in, eyes wide at the scene. David pinned by Michael, James with hands raised, me standing firm. "These men are involved in money laundering," I said, setting the gun down carefully. "The police are on their way." The sirens stopped, and footsteps thundered in the hall. It was over, and I'd made my choice, not revenge, but justice. The conference room at James's law firm was silent, the first rays of dawn painting the Manhattan skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. I sat alone, the adrenaline of the night drained, leaving me hollow, fragile, but strangely steady. The USB drive in my pocket felt like a small victory, proof of a truth I'd fought to expose. The door creaked open, and Olivia stood there, pale, her eyes red-rimmed but resolute. "They found me at James's apartment," she said, her voice soft. "I've been giving my statement for hours." I nodded, too exhausted to summon anger. "You told them everything?" She hesitated, then sat across from me, her hands twisting in her lap. "Yes, I might go to jail, Emma. All those years of sisterhood, and then what I did." Her voice broke, but she pressed on. "I don't expect forgiveness. I hate myself enough for both of us." I looked at her, really looked, and saw the desperate girl beneath the polished facade, always chasing approval, even at my expense. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I admitted, my voice raw, "but I'm tired of hating you." She nodded, tears falling, and a detective appeared at the door. "Ms. Wilson, we're ready for you." I stood, gathering the last of my strength. Olivia rose too, wiping her cheeks. "Emma, thank you for protecting me, despite everything." I didn't answer, but something shifted. A door cracked open, not to forgiveness, but to possibility. In the hallway, Michael waited, holding 2 coffees, his smile warm, grounding. "You've got this," he said, his fingers brushing mine, a quiet spark in the touch. I took the cup, the warmth seeping into my hands. Across the room, I saw James led away in handcuffs, our eyes meeting briefly. No anger remained, only a quiet certainty I'd survived his betrayal, stronger for it. "What now?" Michael asked, his voice gentle. I sipped the coffee, the future uncertain but mine to shape. "One day at a time," I said, feeling the first fragile roots of peace take hold, bitterness fading like a storm's last echo. Healing, I realized, was the truest justice of all.